Deep within the dense jungle of India, there's a cave where a man named Amar, dressed in his uniform, sits completely captivated by the presence of a young girl. In this magical place, he spins captivating tales that transport his young audience to extraordinary worlds. As they indulge in their storytelling session, the peaceful atmosphere is suddenly shattered by the chaotic flutter of bats, disturbed by an unknown force drawing near the cave. Amar senses danger and cautiously steps outside, tightly clutching his gun, determined to protect the vulnerable children and his fellow tribesmen inside. But alas, tragedy strikes swiftly as a fierce wolf, lurking in the shadows, lunges at him, mercilessly devouring him. Meanwhile, in a far-off city, a man named Bhaskar Sharma embarks on a mission given to him by his employer. Accompanied by his cousin, Jana, and their friend, Joman, they embark on a long and winding journey through hills and valleys towards their destination. Along the way, they are awestruck by the breathtaking landscapes, cherishing the beauty that unfolds before their eyes. Under the veil of darkness, they finally arrive at their temporary dwelling for the night, a cozy villa made of bamboo walls. As Bhaskar scans the surroundings, he notices a bat perched inside the house, which suddenly takes flight, startling the trio. Unbeknownst to them, a vigilant wolf observes their every move from a distance. Fortunately, the villa guards promptly light up the room, shooing away the bat and providing a semblance of safety. The following day, accompanied by his two colleagues, Bhaskar sets out to meet influential local figures. Among them are Mr. Nelly, Mr. Prakas, and the transportation officer, Mr. Panda. Bhaskar seizes this opportunity to explain his plans for constructing a road that would pass through a forest where the Bitten tribe has lived for more than 20 generations. The tribe's existence is intricately connected to the forest, as they depend on its resources for survival and hold it sacred in their worship. Among the men gathered there, some agreed that constructing the road through the forest was a good idea, as it would save money and bring them great profits. However, others voiced their concerns about the damage to nature and the displacement of the Bitten people, who had lived in the forest for generations. Eventually, they reached a consensus, deciding that the highway would indeed pass through the heart of the forest. The development process began at the forest's edge. On their way back from the project site, Mr. Panda shared rumors about a virus-spreading creature called Yepum that lurked in the forest. This was the reason why the forest had remained untouched by the highway for so long. However, Bhaskar, with a touch of arrogance, proclaimed that money had the ultimate power and that anything could be achieved with enough funds. Bhaskar also instructed Mr. Panda to arrange a meeting with the Bitten people, assuring them of compensation for their land. Upon hearing this, Mr. Panda reminded Bhaskar that they were mere visitors and should show respect for nature and the indigenous people. Fed up with Bhaskar and Joman's disrespectful behavior, Mr. Panda got out of the car since he lived nearby. As they walked, they came across a sacred cow named Bitten, highly revered by the Bitten people. Throughout the journey back to the villa, Bhaskar and Jana continued to mock Bitten, until an accident occurred, leaving them stranded in the middle of the forest as their car broke down. Joman believed that Bitten had intentionally crossed their path out of anger. Bhaskar, who had been mocking the secret creature, refused to believe in Bitten's influence and instead blamed Joman for not paying attention to the road. Soon after, Bhaskar received a call from his father, who questioned why Bhaskar had used his grandfather's house as collateral for the project. Ignoring the inquiry, Bhaskar pretended the signal was weak and abruptly ended the conversation. Later, while Bhaskar was relieving himself, a hideous figure emerged nearby. Terrified, Bhaskar fled in panic, screaming for help. At first, Jana and Joman thought it was just another one of Bhaskar's pranks, until they saw a wolf chasing after him. The wolf managed to sink its teeth into Bhaskar's backside, but fortunately, Bhaskar escaped without being torn apart. Instead of rushing to the hospital, Joman took him to a nearby veterinarian named Anika. They feared that if news got out that Bhaskar had been bitten by a wolf in the forest, it would fuel the belief in the wolf's anger and potentially halt the road construction project. Anika quickly arrives, and after Joman explains the situation, she takes Bhaskar to her clinic. As Bhaskar's pants are taken off, both Joe and Anika are stunned by the severity of the wound on his backside. Anika injects a purple painkiller directly into Bhaskar's injured buttock. The next morning, Bhaskar notices strange changes in himself. His senses become incredibly sharp, allowing him to effortlessly catch flies. Uncontrollable hunger consumes him, accompanied by the growth of sharp teeth. Suddenly, his body undergoes a transformation, revealing a sculpted six-pack abdomen. After their eventful experiences, Bhaskar and his companions continue their journey to meet the Bitten people. Along the way, Bhaskar's heightened senses detect the scent of a dead rabbit, causing him to turn around and collect it, even though it's far from their starting point at the villa. When they arrive at the community meeting hall, Mr. Panda, acting as a mediator, tries to reconcile Bhaskar's intentions as a contractor proposing the road construction through the forest. He emphasizes the generous compensation that would be given to the displaced residents. However, the Bitten tribe shows no interest in money and strongly opposes Bhaskar's proposal. One resident even raises a mashie in protest. Undeterred by the rejection, Bhaskar persists and focuses on engaging the younger members of the Bitten tribe. He describes the modern amenities that would come with the road, such as airports, cinemas, and cafes. Unlike the older generation, who adamantly reject the project, the young Bitten individuals eagerly listen to Bhaskar and immediately offer their support by signing the documents held by Mr. Prakas. In addition to the promised modern facilities, Bhaskar entices them further by offering iPhones to everyone. However, amidst these intriguing developments, Bhaskar's extraordinary senses continue to heighten, granting him the ability to hear distant conversations with remarkable clarity. After his unsettling encounter at the community meeting, Bhaskar starts experiencing intense stomach pains, prompting Mr. Panda to take him to Oja, the revered 120-year-old Bitten tribal healer. Oja examines Bhaskar by immersing his face in water. Filled with fear, Bhaskar hastily flees the scene. Instead of finding solace or healing, he is left perplexed by what he saw within the water. Meanwhile, in the healer's room, Oja calmly observes Bhaskar's reaction with a mysterious smile. Seeking answers and comfort, Bhaskar immediately visits Anika at her clinic, recounting all the strange experiences he has had since being bitten by the wolf. He tells her about his heightened senses, the ability to smell things from far away, and a complete healing of his previously injured buttocks despite the bite happening just a day ago. After re-evaluating Bhaskar's condition, Anika acknowledges that something unusual is happening, noticing his excessively fast heartbeat. She prescribes medication to regulate his condition and urges Bhaskar to take it promptly. However, instead of listening to her advice and explanations, Bhaskar confidently insists that he is feeling better. Later, Bhaskar asks Anika out on a date to a music festival, deepening their connection. A few days go by, and Bhaskar, accompanied by Joe and Anika, attends a lively music event in the village. It coincides with the full moon, creating an electrifying atmosphere that attracts many locals, including Anika, Mr. Nelly, Mr. Prakas, and Mr. Panda. The festivities bring the community together, fostering connections in the vibrant ambience. As the event draws to a close, Mr. Prakas retires to his tent nestled in the forest. However, shortly after settling in, he becomes alarmed by the sound of breaking branches outside. Hurriedly, Mr. Prakas ventures out to investigate, only to be attacked and devoured by a savage wolf. The next day, Bhaskar finds himself summoned by the police because his jacket was found near the location where Mr. Prakas was killed, riddled with holes. Confused, Bhaskar and his companions are taken aback, as they had spent the previous night immersed in the joyful music festival. To deflect suspicion, Bhaskar avoids giving his jacket to Mr. Prakas after the party. Luckily, the police accept their alibi. Before long, Mr. Panda appears as a witness, testifying that he was close to the incident and saw a man's shadow transforming into a four-legged creature that attacked Mr. Prakas. Convinced that the creature was Yapom, Mr. Panda's account supports their claims. Upon returning from the police station, Bhaskar's health deteriorates, and he vomits a large amount of blood. Concerned, Joe and Anika rush him back to Dr. Anika for urgent treatment. Based on her diagnosis, Dr. Anika identifies severe stomach ulcers in Bhaskar, likely caused by excessive consumption of red meat. However, as she administers the painkillers, a startling transformation overtakes Bhaskar. He exhibits incredible strength, effortlessly lifting the bed, and his behavior becomes frightening. Witnessing this unexpected display of power and the change in his demeanor after the Yapam bite, Jana becomes convinced that Bhaskar can transform into Yapam and is responsible for attacking Mr. Prakas. In a covert plan, Jana and Joe decide to secretly collect a sample from Bhaskar during his bathroom visit to be examined in a laboratory. After delivering the collected samples to the hospital, they had to patiently wait for the results until the next day. In the meantime, Bhaskar went to the hospital to visit Mr. Prakas, who was receiving treatment for his many wounds. Suddenly, something extraordinary happened. Mr. Prakas's wounds miraculously healed. Thankful to Bhaskar for biting him, Mr. Prakas delusionally believed that they were now allies, destined to eliminate the detestable people in the village. However, this was nothing more than a product of Bhaskar's imagination, a mere hallucination. In a matter of moments, Mr. Koman and the military forces arrived at the scene, led by Mr. Kasso. They swiftly took possession of Mr. Prakas's body, intending to cremate it in an empty plot, suspecting him of being infected with the Yapam virus. Coincidentally, at that very moment, the indigenous Apatani tribe, guided by Osha, performed sacred rituals, and from the flames, the elusive figure of Yapam seemed to materialize. The next morning, Joe and Jana confronted Bhaskar about his increasingly odd behavior, which had drastically changed since the Yapam bite. He now had a fascination with the smell of animal carcasses, experienced episodes of vomiting blood, and displayed astonishing strength by effortlessly lifting mattresses. When Jana threatened to tell Bhaskar's father about the situation, Bhaskar's emotions overwhelmed him, and he almost harmed Jana with his newfound power. Later that evening, Joe and Jana met with Anika to discuss Bhaskar's alarming behavior after the Yapam bite. The laboratory results revealed the presence of hair, nails, and fragments of human bones in Bhaskar's stool. Mr. Panda joined their conversation, sharing the belief that Yapam would target those who threatened the forest and transform them into wolves. However, Anika dismissed their theories as absurd, attributing Bhaskar's condition to a mental illness that made him believe he was a wolf. After Anika left, Mr. Panda added that those bitten by Yapam would be influenced by the full moon, transforming into wolves. Coincidentally, it was the night of a full moon. Without wasting time, Joe and Jana said goodbye to Mr. Panda and hurried home to check on Bhaskar's condition. Back at home, Bhaskar succumbed to the influence of the full moon. He became hysterical, losing control over his body and ultimately transforming into a wolf. Joe and Jana chased after the wolf, confirming its identity as Bhaskar because they recognized his blue boxer shorts. After transforming into Yapam, Bhaskar unleashed his ferocity by attacking Joe's car. The next morning, he woke up deep in the forest, still wearing blood-stained boxer shorts, and noticed a lurking black Yapam observing him from afar. While making his way back to the villa, Bhaskar ran into Dr. Anika, who immediately accompanied him home. Upon their arrival, Jana questioned Bhaskar about his senseless acts of violence. In response, Bhaskar expressed his own confusion, feeling as if Yapam had taken control of his body, and he couldn't remember his own actions. Shortly after, Bhaskar received a call from Mr. Panda, who delivered distressing news. It turned out that not only had Midun's sacred cow been devoured the previous night, but Mr. Nelly had also been torn apart. CCTV footage from Mr. Nelly's room clearly showed a wolf wearing boxer shorts similar to Bhaskar's. In response, Jana and Joe hurried to the villa to eliminate any incriminating evidence, specifically by burning the boxer shorts. Meanwhile, Bhaskar sought Anika's help in putting an end to his uncontrollable transformation into a wolf and his gruesome act of consuming people. He recounted how he vividly witnessed himself tearing Mr. Nelly apart, despite having no control over his own body. Anika, however, asserted that Bhaskar had contracted the disease due to his audacious destruction of the sacred forest, which served as India's vital source of oxygen. Under the cover of night, Mr. Panda sneaked into the villa and took a piece of evidence, an intact portion of Bhaskar's burnt box. He planned to expose Bhaskar as Yapom, the perpetrator behind the killings in the village. However, Bhaskar, empowered by his wolf-like abilities, leaped forward and instilled fear in Mr. Panda. Overwhelmed by terror, Mr. Panda abandoned his intentions to reveal the truth about Yapom's identity to the villagers. Bhaskar's threat to bite him made Mr. Panda realize that he, too, would transform into Yapom, continuing the cycle of spreading the disease through biting others. Joe vowed to burn the remaining boxer shorts as evidence, while Mr. Panda promised to find Oja, the revered Apatani tribal healer known for his mystical powers, in order to cure Bhaskar of the Yapom affliction. In the meantime, Bhaskar had to exercise restraint, resisting his wolf instincts and refraining from consuming others until they could find Oja. The search for Oja continued for several days, during which Mr. Panda wandered through the forest, engaging in months-long meditation to connect with spiritual guidance. As news of the attacks on Mr. Nelly and the sacred Bitten cow spreads throughout the village, fear and suspicion surround Bhaskar, now seen as a virus by the locals. In preparation for the upcoming full moon, Joe and Jana, following Mr. Panda's advice, decide to confine Bhaskar in a secluded shed to control his wolf-like nature. However, when they arrive, they unexpectedly come face to face with the military commander, Mr. Casso, who quickly locks the shed from the outside and captures the whole scene on video. Mr. Casso has long suspected Bhaskar's involvement in the recent wolf attacks on villagers. In a state of panic, the three friends desperately search for an escape route. Suddenly, the full moon rises, exerting its influence on Bhaskar. Transformed into a wolf, Bhaskar lunges at Jana and Joe, ready to attack. At the same time, Mr. Casso falls victim to another wolf's attack. The black wolf, the one who initially bit Bhaskar, arrives to help, biting off Mr. Casso's arm and freeing Bhaskar and his friends from the shed. Thankfully, Joe grabs Mr. Casso's cell phone, preventing the video footage from spreading. The next day, Mr. Panda successfully finds Oja and immediately takes Bhaskar to him for treatment. Through Mr. Panda, Oja reveals that the forest is furious with Bhaskar's plan to destroy it. The only known cure for his condition is to be bitten by Yapom again, on the same spot on his buttocks, during a moonless night. Eager to return to his normal self, Bhaskar willingly offers himself for another bite. To ensure that the wolf bites only the designated area, Joe, Jana, and Anika help Bhaskar create a protective suit, leaving only a hole on his right buttock. In addition to their efforts, Anika takes Bhaskar for a walk to her favorite spot in the forest, hoping to bring him solace and a sense of connection. The long-awaited moonless night finally arrives. Bhaskar, filled with anticipation, positions himself at the spot where Yapom first bit him, while Joe and Jana watch from a distance. Unbeknownst to them, the military has been deployed to hunt down Yapom. Finally, the awaited black Yapom, Bhaskar, appears. However, the military opens fire and injures Yapom with their gunfire. Meanwhile, Mr. Panda tries to warn Bhaskar and his friends about the approaching military, but driven by his desire to be bitten and cured, Bhaskar chases after the fleeing Yapom. To his astonishment, he discovers Anika in a cave. Unbeknownst to Bhaskar, it was Anika who had initially bitten him, unintentionally transforming him into Yapom. Initially, Anika had planned to kill Bhaskar because of his intention to destroy the forest with his highway project. Anika revealed that she had protected the secret forest for 100 years and had herself been infected with the Yapom virus after being bitten by a wolf. Although she initially wanted to kill Bhaskar, her feelings of jealousy grew as she saw his gradual improvement. Anika devised a plan for Bhaskar to take over as the guardian of the sacred forest because she couldn't stay in one forest for too long, fearing that her true identity would eventually be discovered by the locals. However, as Bhaskar longed to regain his human form, Anika still intended to bite him. Just as she was about to do so, Joe, Jana, and Mr. Panda intervened and approached Bhaskar. In the midst of this intervention, Anika retreated to protect her secret identity. Eventually, Anika was captured and taken to the office of the highway developer by the army captain, who contemplated killing her. As the truth about Anika's identity came to light, Mr. Panda, Joe and Jana encouraged Bhaskar to embrace his wolf form and rescue Anika from those who sought to end her life. However, transforming into a wolf without the full moon proved to be challenging for Bhaskar. To overcome this obstacle, Mr. Panda advised him to tap into the power of the forest, enabling Bhaskar to successfully transform into a wolf. At the developer's office, where Anika was about to be burned alive, a crowd gathered and Bhaskar arrived, summoning a swarm of bats to disrupt the enemy soldiers and free Anika. The wooden prison holding Anika proved to be impenetrable, so Bhaskar focused on defeating the surrounding military forces first. Unfortunately, Bhaskar's leg got trapped, leaving him vulnerable to enemy gunfire. In a twist of fate, Oja came to their rescue, freeing Anika from her prison. However, Oja was stabbed, prompting Bhaskar to retaliate and protect his ally. Anika and Bhaskar pursued the remaining adversaries, but Oja, despite his injuries, intervened, appealing for peace. The members of the Bitten tribe and the local residents united, paying tribute to the two werewolves and recognizing their role as guardians of the sacred forest. Bhaskar, now more accepting of his Yapam destiny, realized the vital importance of forests for human survival. Bhaskar and Anika returned to the forest hand in hand. However, tragedy struck as Anika's wounds proved too severe, causing her condition to worsen. She slipped off a cliff, succumbing to her injuries and passing away. After the dramatic turn of events, 6 months later, the highway project was finally finished. However, Bhaskar chose to build it on the outskirts of the forest, with the intention of protecting nature and bringing modernization to the Bitten tribal village. In the closing scene, Jana feeds Bhaskar with fresh animal meat, reminiscent of the feeding habits of wolves. Soon after, Jana reunites with his two friends, who had been tirelessly searching for him. The three of them hear a wolf's roar, piquing their curiosity and prompting them to investigate its source, and thus the film comes to an end. The moral of the story is always listen to your dentist, because you never know when a wolf bite will turn you into a superhero with sculpted abs and heightened senses.